As we've said multiple times on this channel, this is going to be an interesting offseason for the Bulls, mainly because of the free agency decision on Zach Lavine. Will the Bulls offer him the max? Will they not be offering him the max? Will Zach be looking to go another direction, even if he's offered the max, etc.? But Zach Lavine's contract extension aside, because we've talked about it quite a bit here on the channel, there are still other players around the league who are set to become free agents, whether restricted or unrestricted, that the Bulls could look to pursue to improve the roster. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 free agents that the Bulls should be looking at this summer, realistic targets anyway, what they would bring to the Bulls, how feasible they would be to get compared to their demand around the league, and what kind of contract the Bulls should be looking at to offer. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I'll be going over these 5 in no particular order, and I also want to note that I did not include Zach Lavine, as I'm only looking at free agents who are currently not on the Bulls roster right now for the purposes of this video. So I won't be including guys like Derrick Jones Jr., Troy Brown Jr., Tristan Thompson, etc. I know all those guys are going to be free agents, but we're going to leave them off the table right now. Just wanted to make that clear from the get-go so people don't go nuts at me in the comments for not including Zach Lavine. In fact, this video and the free agents I'll be talking about assumes the Bulls are re-signing Zach Lavine, which means limited cap space, which means the guys I'm going over aren't going to be the biggest names and would either be on vet minimum deals or mid-level exceptions. So let's actually start there, because assuming the Bulls do in fact re-sign Zach Lavine to a 5-year max to the tune of $212 million, the Bulls are more or less going to have very little cap space to work with. Now, some space would be freed up by guys like Derrick Jones Jr., Troy Brown Jr. not being re-signed. If Tony Bradley declines his player option, that would free up a little bit of space, but I doubt that he's going to be declining his player option. They may look to make a few trades to free up some space, Coby White being one of those players who would be on an expiring deal. I know a lot of people have been talking about trading Vucevic since he's on an expiring deal, and that would free up $22 million in space if you were to work in a sign and trade to bring in another player, because it's not like you can just trade a player and get that money off the books. No, you would have to bring in other players to match that salary. So again, I'm prefacing all this to say the Bulls don't have a ton of cap space, and so their free agent targets are going to be role players. Also, clearly the Bulls would not be eligible to sign all 5 of these players. This is more to say they should look to bring in one of these guys, maybe 2. So let's start with the first free agent that I think would be interesting and valuable to the Bulls, and that's Mitchell Robinson. Now, it's no secret that the biggest area of need for the Bulls this offseason is size, rim protection, interior defense in general, and shooting. Well, Mitchell doesn't solve the shooting aspect, but he's most certainly a player that fills the need for rim protection and size. Robinson is an elite shot blocker. He was 4th in the league in blocks this past season. He's an elite offensive rebounder, 2nd in the league in offensive rebounds a year prior. He shoots 76% from the field, one of the most efficient players around the rim on both ends of the floor, really. He does not shoot threes, though, like at all. He hasn't taken a single 3 in his NBA career. And Mitchell Robinson is only 24 years old, still a young player, still some upside potential. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of holes to his game. Not a great scorer, not a good post-up player, not the best perimeter defender when it comes to guarding big men that can space the floor. But again, the Bulls don't necessarily need scorers when they have DeRozan and Lavine and even Vucevic, who I'm sure some of you will say, well, if you bring in Robinson, what does that mean for Vucevic? Well, I don't think the Bulls are going to be moving on from Vuce because of how much they have stressed the importance of continuity in their exit interviews. And as much as I like Robinson's game and how he fits with the Bulls, he's not a starter in the NBA. He's more suited to be a backup center, which the Bulls didn't really have this past offseason with the poor play from Tony Bradley and then inconsistency from Tristan Thompson after we brought him in. Robinson has played the 4 here and there as well, so you could even put him there to give you some added size next to Vucevic, although I don't know how well that would work, as we saw that experiment failed when putting Tristan Thompson and Vucevic in the same lineup. So I think having Mitchell Robinson come off the bench behind Vucevic gives the Bulls a bit of depth and defense in the second unit. It doesn't solve everything, but it's a start in the right direction. Now, the question here really is, would Robinson be willing to take on a lesser role playing with the Bulls than he otherwise has currently with the Knicks? Robinson is a starter on that team, played around 25 minutes per game, and of course the Knicks could offer him a pretty nice contract extension that he might be unwilling to turn down. But you also have to consider going to a winning team in the Bulls over the Knicks, who were a disaster this past season, winning 37 games and finishing 11th in the East outside of the play-in. You'd have to think at some point winning is going to play a factor, and I think a mid-level contract could be enough to entice Robinson to want to come play in Chicago, still in a big market, but a market that is on the winning side of basketball, unlike the New York Knicks. The next free agent I think is intriguing is Jusuf Nurkic. Now, You'll probably notice a common theme in this list. I'm mainly looking at bigs because, again, it's what the Bulls need. The thing with Nurkic, though, is that he's a higher level player than someone like Mitchell Robinson and is likely going to be looking to start. And I wouldn't start Nurkic over Vucevic, and I wouldn't trade Vucevic just so that you can bring in Nurkic. That would be a mistake. But Nurkic is likely one of those bigs that is going to be on the move as Portland is in more or less of a rebuild. Nurkic has expressed in the past that he isn't that happy with his role in Portland. Nurkic, unlike Robinson, is a better offensive rebounder, can hit mid-range shots as well as finish down low. He's also great at playing in the pick and roll, is a decent passer for a big man, another elite level rebounder, one of the best in the league. Not the best three-point shooter though, so not that great in terms of the overall floor spacing, but he can hit those outside shots from time to time, whereas Mitchell Robinson doesn't shoot them at all. I think Nurkic is more likely a free agent prospect that is going to command a pretty hefty salary that the Bulls wouldn't be able to afford unless they, of course, try to execute a sign-and-trade by including Coby White and some other assets. Nurkic is likely going to be looking for something in that $15 to $17 million range, maybe even more, which, again, the Bulls don't have to really sign him outright. Another free agent target that could be on the Bulls' radar is Montrezl Harrell. He's a player I was really hoping the Bulls were going to get at the trade deadline this past season, especially when you saw the Hornets barely have to give up anything in order for them to get him from the Wizards. Harrell is one of those high-level energy players that you can always use on your team to get the crowd going with his hustle, physicality, and tenacity and crashing the offensive glass. Not the best defender, though, which is something the Bulls still need to go along with the size, but Harrell as a backup 4 or 5 on a favorable contract is something that could benefit the Bulls for that second unit depth. Harrell probably won't command as much money as someone like Nurkic as well. My guess is probably something in the $10 million a year range, which might be tough for the Bulls to pull off without making a trade to free up some salary cap space, which, by the way, last season I did a breakdown video on the Bulls salary cap situation, what they had available to them, and how much they had going into the luxury tax or how much they could go into the luxury tax. Let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing something like that again this season. But anyway, I think Harrell is an intriguing option if they can make the money work. It's still very possible that a team might overpay for him, and the Bulls front office is going to be unwilling to exceed that amount in order to get him. The next free agent, and this one might come as a bit of a surprise to some of you, but it's someone to keep an eye on, and that is Bobby Portis. And I know some people will say, why would Bobby ever even consider coming back to Chicago after they traded him away or more or less ended things on bad terms? And every time Bobby plays against the Bulls, he always seems to have this vendetta against them and wanting to destroy them. What I don't get, though, when I hear from Bulls fans say, I can't believe Garpax traded away Bobby Portis, that was such a horrible trade, I think people forget that the Bulls offered Bobby an extension to his rookie deal that was pretty lucrative, and he turned it down to become a restricted free agent because he wanted more. And because the Bulls knew Bobby was looking to get paid even more than what they offered him, they traded him away knowing that they weren't going to be able to sign him with the cap space they had available to them and didn't want to lose him in free agency for nothing. And of course, Bobby got a contract much less than what the Bulls offered him from the Knicks, so he kind of shot himself in the foot there, settling for less than just agreeing to the extension that the Bulls gave him. That being said, though, it worked out for him because he ultimately went to Milwaukee, won a championship there, and is beloved by the city of Milwaukee. However, Bobby did accept a pretty sizable pay cut to stay with the Bucks. Less than what he's worth anyway, especially after the 2 seasons that he just had with them. He's worth more than that 2-year, $4.7 million contract that he signed. Yes, Bobby Portis is on a 2-year, $4.7 million contract deal. And because Bobby has a player option for this upcoming season, and since the Bucks did not win the title like they had hoped this year, and I'm sure Bobby knows he's worth more than $4.5 million a year, I would not be shocked if he declined his player option to get paid while he's still in the peak of his prime earning years. And sorry, I actually should apologize. It was 2 years, $7 million, not 4.5. And it's one thing to take a discount to win titles, but when you're pretty grossly underpaid relative to your production and the team can't make it out of the second round, then you might start to look for other opportunities. Now, again, I don't know if the Bulls are the team that he would be looking for because the Bulls don't have that much money to sign him outside of the mid-level exception anyway, again, unless they try to do a sign and trade. And he likely could get more money from other teams who have ample cap space, but it's something the Bulls should consider, given his hustle, his energy, his strength, and size in terms of his ability to crash the boards, but also, unlike the other players that I just previously mentioned, he's a solid three-point shooter, which helps the Bulls spread the floor even further. Portis is a near 40% three-point shooter. He averaged 14.6 points per game and 9.1 rebounds and stepped up big time for the Bucks when Robin Lopez was out most of the season. To have a guy like Portis who can play the 4 or 5, can fight for boards, has great post-up game, great outside shooter, and is decent on the defensive end as well, I think this would be a solid pickup for the Bulls, and he fits the Bulls timeline as well with a player that is a little older, a little more established, has championship level experience. I think would be a great pickup. I do think it's highly unlikely though, because he's going to be looking for more money than what the Bulls are going to be willing to offer. And then finally, the last free agent I think the Bulls should target, and this is the only guard on the list, and that's Malik Monk. And really, the addition of Monk is to help the Bulls' outside shooting. Not saying that Monk is the ideal candidate for that role, as he can be a little streaky, but he had one of the best seasons of his career last year with the Lakers. He shot 39% from 3, 47% from the field, averaged 13.8 points per game. Monk signed a 1-year minimum deal with the Lakers this past offseason and really earned a spot in that lineup. I think Monk is a player you can get for pretty cheap that helps out with shooting, because outside of size and rim protection, the biggest addition needed in this Bulls roster is shooting. And if you're uncertain about the future of Coby White, who is set to become a restricted free agent next offseason, and you know you're going to have to pay him, Monk might be a cheaper option that may offer you similar level output and production as Coby White. Some other players that I think also would be good options to look at as honorable mentions here. I think Chris Boucher is another guy you could get for cheap, who is a dynamic defender and also can help space the floor a bit on offense. Another guy who gives you size as well. I also think you could look at a guy like Dante DiVincenzo. He's going to be a restricted free agent, could provide to be a good outside shooter for the Bulls to add a little more depth at the 2 behind Zach. Nick Batum, if he declines his player option, for some veteran experience, 2-way playing ability, solid shooting, just a good high IQ player to have come off the bench behind DeMar DeRozan as an example. I think he's likely going to take his player option though. And then finally, Mo Bamba, another restricted free agent, but it's sounding like his days in Orlando are numbered, given they have Wendell Carter Jr. that they just gave a contract to. They also have Jonathan Isaac. They have the #1 pick this year, which could be Chet Holmgren, another center. And if you're the Bulls, might not be a bad idea to take a chance on Mo Bamba for really cheap. Again, only if it's cheap. Still young, only 24, a former #6 overall pick. Actually had a decent season last year with the Magic, averaged 10.6 points per game, 8.1 rebounds, nearly 2 blocks per game. Gives you rim protection, size, upside potential, given he's still young and getting better and hasn't entered his prime yet. To be honest, the more I think about it, Mo Bamba should probably be on the actual top 5 list and not an honorable mention. But anyway, those are the free agents I would like to see the Bulls pursue, again, within reason when it comes to how much they would have to pay for them. Like, yes, it would be nice to get a player like Mitchell Robinson or Montrezl Harrell, but not if you end up overpaying them because you're desperate for bigs. That's my take anyway. I would love to hear some of the free agents you guys would like to see the Bulls go after. Let me know if there was anyone I missed. Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.